Hello.
I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna slice you up.
Who is
I'm
this?
gonna chop you like liver.
What do you want?
I'm in the house. Where am I?
You're behind the couch.
What? How do you know that?
I can see your feet.
All right, I'm going to level with you guys. Warframe is getting weird. Very weird. In my first video talking about my first experiences playing Warframe for the first time, first 20 hours or so, the top comment on that video read something along the lines of, the problem with Warframe is that the game is so large and it's so content rich that effectively you're still in the tutorial in the first 20 hours of the game, even though it doesn't tell you that it is. And that couldn't be any more true. I talked about these moments of reverence when I spoke about my first impressions, where I got these hints at something greater, that there was going to be more to this game than originally meets the eye, where I talked about the incredible music, like on Fortuna, or the gameplay, or some dynamic quests, and all kinds of different things. And instead of getting something as obtuse as things that I'm discerning from playing the game, no, now instead I'm getting literal hints at something greater, something bigger that I am on the verge of. And I want to talk about that with you guys today. So I'm really happy to have you guys continue on this journey of me experiencing Warframe for the first time. I also really want to thank the Warframe community. You guys have been wildly supportive through this journey, which has been awesome. And I thank you for both your generosity and following the videos and enjoying the videos as much as you have. But today I'm talking about how I am now 70 hours into Warframe. And that investment is paying off dividends. Big time. In my first video talking about Warframe, I talked about the overall feel of the game and my first impressions of the game's combat, the setting, and various systems. Warframe, for all intents and purposes, bodies the description of a game that grows on you. You have to be patient, you have to take your time, you have to pay attention. I was impressed by the amount of systems, the depth of systems and content within my first 20 hours of playing the game. Little did I know that I was barely scratching the surface, and here I am now 70 hours in, and I'm staring into the void, and it's staring back at me. Imagine my surprise after hours and hours of ground combat, and I finally complete a quest that unlocks the Archwing, a flight system for your Warframe that allows you to engage in space combat missions and later on even underground or underwater missions. And I feel like I'm playing Armored Core 6 or Zone of the Enders, zipping around space, firing unlimited ammo, slashing targets, chasing down cargo ships, and more. Warframe is such a layered game. The longer you play, the more you find to appreciate, and the more varied the experience becomes, and the Archwing is really just the beginning of that. First, I'm a space ninja. Next, I'm fighting in a mech shooter. And then all of a sudden, I find there's an entire pet breeding system where you can go and scan wildlife for genetic data and start breeding unique battle companions. And now I just recently played the Dark Souls-inspired roguelike, Devuri Complex, which has its own progression system, cross-progression rewards with the base game, some of the most beautiful level design I have ever seen in gaming, an incredible story, epic boss fights, and beautiful music. It in itself is a game by itself. And you keep finding these games within a game in Warframe. At this point, I'm questioning whether or not this game is even real. How the hell can Ubisoft deliver a quadruple A pirate game with no pirates, yet this free-to-play MMO can satisfy my rampant gaming ADD by giving me more activities and depth than I can even keep up with? All the while, all of this content is optional. It helps the overall progression of the game, but none of it is necessary for you to progress the main game, leaving me feeling like I have options rather than just being overwhelmed. Warframe's true brilliance, the true intelligent design of this game, is that there's a lot for you to do, but none of it is things that you have to do. It's things that you're choosing to do because you want to do it. It's not because you need to progress the game for reward's sake. No, you're doing it because you want to. And now you couple this with the fact that the game just feels so damn good to play, and you're left with a game that you want to play because you want to play it, rather than a game that you feel like you need to play, otherwise you're going to fall behind for some reason or another. And that's something that I honestly had to kind of untrain my brain on, because I'm so used to live service games that are always pushing, always nudging, always trying to get you to spend money because you don't want to fall behind, and the best rewards and the things that you need are going to take too long for you to get realistically because, well, you know, people have a life and things like that. And This game doesn't have that. And that's really something I've only ever seen in maybe Helldivers 2 or Deep Rock Galactic and now in Warframe, and that's incredibly special. And the best part is that they're just giving you more options for things to do. They're giving you more avenues of things to do because they're not making things so damn necessary like so many other games normally do. And the best part about this is that whatever you choose to do in this game, whether that's grinding relics or pushing the story or going and doing whatever other kind of activities are out there, maybe it's the night wave, all of these different things have this cross progression where they're constantly giving you rewards for other areas of the games or other things that you want to do. So you're left feeling like you actually have options for once, and it feels damn good to have that. And to be honest with you, with that experience and with me learning this over the last 70 hours, it's led me to want to walk back some of my initial criticisms. Slightly. In my first 20 hours, I levied complaints against the time gating of the Forge and the lack of weapons and frames that were available to me from the start. And while I still hold that criticism, it's not as bad as it seems after the first 20 to 30 hours because, well, I've been cooking. A lot, actually. After fighting a boss and realizing that it dropped neuroptics for another frame, I put 2 and 2 together and realized that boss nodes on planets give you individual pieces that you need, then you can just go to the market to buy the blueprint and make the frame. But then also, while I was browsing the market, I realized that there were tons of weapon blueprints that I could just straight up buy and just go ahead and craft and start to progress my master rank. After realizing this, I just went on a tirade of farming materials, building frames and weapons, leveling them up and selling them to free up inventory. Only for me to then, of course, realize that some weapons are actually needed in the crafting of other weapons, so I've been a little bit more careful about the things I sell and the things I keep. The crafting time gate isn't as bad as it seems once you actually have a constant cycle of things that are always being crafted. While you're waiting for something to finish, you go out and start farming for something else to put into the forge, rinse and repeat. You always have something cooking and you're always working on the next thing. I can now see why players were telling me that most people don't rush the crafting with platinum because it's unnecessary and would otherwise be a waste. However, while I concede ground on the severity of the time gating, my overall criticisms still stand firm and highlight the disconnect between dedicated players and new players. As a new player, you don't have anything already in the cycle in the Forge, and to my knowledge, the game doesn't really explicitly tell you or guide you that boss nodes are dropping parts or blueprints, or that you should buy weapon prints from the shop or from the market to be able to make more weapons. Most players, when they're playing the game for the first time, just as I did, bounce from node to node, get XP, have no idea what you're getting, what its purpose is, what the loot even does, or even understand how the looting system even works. 90% of Warframe's explanations are contained in the codex, not through gameplay. And while some of this stuff is helpful in the codex, not a lot of it is clear. And when you couple this with the lack of clarity and direction and the time gating system, new players are going to end up feeling like they have no room to grow. The next thing you know, you've already leveled up your frame and all your weapons and you have nothing else to look forward to. And now the game is telling you, wait another 12 hours to come back, and you feel like you haven't even done anything yet. The game is far too easy at the start. You level up everything super quickly, and by the time you get to figure out how crafting and frames even work, you now have to wait 12 to 24 hours for weapons, or a combined 3.5 days for a new Warframe. If you're wondering why new players are quitting, well, that's why. And it's so important to break through that new player perspective because there's so many incredible things that are waiting on the other side, but a lot of people are going to fall into that. I fell into that pitfall that was the first 20 hours or more of the game, and it was more like 20 or 40 hours for me or something like that. But once you actually have things cooking in the Forge, once you're cycling through weapons and different frames, once you actually get the opportunity to try out different frames and feel how they are so different from one another, how flexible they are, it's incredible. There are such greener pastures once you get past the first 20 to 40 hours of the game, and it just keeps opening up bigger and bigger and bigger. But a lot of players are not going to start with the context of knowing about the Devory Circuit or cracking relics or the Warframe market or the massive discounts that you get on Platinum and all kinds of different things. They're not going to know that stuff, and it's important that they do, and they need to figure it out, and they need to figure out how to make that new player experience better because damn is it a good game once you get past it. And let's talk about that. I finally got my first frame, Rhino, cooking in the Forge, and I ended up having someone make a really generous donation telling me to get Dante, urging me to use it to get by until I got more blueprints and materials to continue to fill my Forge, and this is exactly where the game really opened up to me. As I continued to play through Mars and Phobos, I started to play as Dante, and I know that Dante isn't reflective of all frames, but it really does go to show just how flexible and unlimited these frames and their class design feel. I cast Light Verse to shield myself, Dark Verse to attack, and depending on what combinations of those abilities I use, I can create a book that fires with my gun, I can overshield my overshields, I can summon ravens to attack my enemies, or I can just end all existence as far as the eye can see. Now, while not all Warframes are created equal, I was blown away with how distinct each Warframe could be. And later in my playthrough, where the game finally started to give me some level of resistance, enemies started to feel like they had more than 1 HP, I started to find value in how frames could synergize with one another, and also I could see the purpose in their abilities. With Vault, Dante, and then later Rhino, I quickly saw how dynamic the gameplay could shift depending on what frames you use and what frames are in your party. I saw the impact on different missions and how, depending on what frame you use, some could be better than others depending on what mission you're doing. And because of Warframe's seamless matchmaking, I ended up seeing just how many different frames there are in the game and how diverse of an experience it can be playing with or as each one of them. The importance of class design extends to the power fantasy that it provides. I can feel like an unstoppable force with Rhino, who can just charge into battle, absorb damage, do more damage by roaring at enemies, or I can adopt a faster-paced approach with frames like Volt, who uses abilities to be able to make sure that they can get through objectives more quickly and just mow down the battlefield. The ability to drastically alter one's playstyle from frame to frame really encourages me to try to experiment and try other Warframes that I might think may best suit what I feel like playing or what my teams need. Moreover, I really want to talk about the synergy and how that synergy between these different Warframes can really lead to some exhilarating combinations of abilities. I remember I was playing as Volt in Devuri Circuit, and we had a Gauss and a Wisp, and I just became the embodiment of speed itself. Damn near unable to control myself. Actually, unable to control myself. I ultimately fell off the map more than a handful of times. What's crazy is that the same could be said for all of the weapons and the companions in the game as well, each of them serving a very specific purpose, all with their own feel and style. And in some cases, like with using the glaive as an example, you can change the way the game plays entirely. Pinning enemies up against the wall with the bolter, hitting headshots with a bow, throwing and timing detonations with a glaive, all weapons feel incredibly distinct and diverse. Melee weapons arguably showcase this the best, as every single dagger, katana, dual katana, hammer, whatever, you name it, all of them have unique combos, animations, and use cases, and it really just goes to show just how much Digital Extremes puts effort into how combat feels. And I just can't tell you how necessary it is for a game like this to have such diversity in the feel and the purpose of its weapons and frames. And I'll be honest with you, when I first started playing the game, my first 20-hour impression of it, well, yeah, I felt like it was probably the weapons that were taking the front seat, but that's not the case. The longer that you play, the more you realize just how much of an impact many things in the game have. And once I got to Deimos and then Jupiter and then so on, where the game started finally giving some friction, I actually started to look at, well, you know, how different mods would help me, how different weapons would help me, what the purpose of different weapons and frames could be to accomplish the goals that I have set out. And later into the game, where all of a sudden the Eximus enemies, I think that's how you say it. If I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comments. But the Eximus enemies, once I got to the point where they took more than a clip to kill, well, then I started looking at my mods, then realizing that different elements next to different elements would result in different status effects and things like that. All kinds of different flexible options and things to be able to customize your experience in ways that I didn't think would be available in this game until I got much later into the game, where the game got a little bit more challenging. And it still isn't super challenging, but still, it gave me a level of resistance enough for me to start looking at other things. And man, once you start discovering some of this stuff, you just go, wow. It was an eye-opening experience. And I'll be honest with you, that changed my perspective on this game entirely. And, well, to be really honest, the thing that really changed my perspective was Deimos. Deimos, my God, what a beautifully crafted zone and a wild shift in perspective from my experience of playing the game thus far. An infected moon ruled by the remnants of what I believe to be our creators. A bickering family who's obviously reliant on one another to keep order in the galaxy and also keep us alive as a result. However, they suffer from vain issues that prevent them from working together. I was stunned by how this world looks and how well crafted the story was. A people so advanced that even while they're infected by a hive mind virus could hold back the whispers, and maintain their individuality. Warframe introducing yet another hub city with its own distinct personality, a thoughtful story, vendors, activities, reputation to build, items to farm, and oh, the necromech. Cue the doom music. After failing to fix the Heart of Deimos and I lost my Warframe powers, I got to pilot an absolute killing machine that made me feel like I was playing a rail shooter rather than an RPG. Oppressing enemies with a machine gun arm, dropping mines all over the place. I will never get tired of games that give us these God mode moments where we just get to go wild. You went from feeling like the weakest to the absolute strongest. I am a sucker for these moments where games subvert our expectations and do the unexpected. The minute that you think you know the game, the minute you think you understand the game, they flip you on your head. And the Heart of Deimos left me captivated. From here on, I was all in. As I continued forth, I started blazing a trail through the star chart. Completing my activities on Deimos, I moved to Jupiter, Europa, Saturn, the Void, Uranus. Each consecutive mission making the game feel better and better as higher level enemies forced me to use abilities, learn how they work, and try out different frames. It was at this point I finally was saying to myself, I see why people play this. Damn, this game is getting fun. And then I was hit with a quest called Deadlock Protocol, and I felt as though this was a major tonal shift from Digital Extremes. The quest had me solving a mystery behind Nef Anyo claiming that he was the successor to the Corpus. It gave me a cinematic. I actually had cutscenes where I spoke to the resistances over on Venus, and it all ended up culminating in a boss fight with Protea, another Warframe, and it was incredible. The story was interesting, the void I traveled to looked sick, the boss fight had unique mechanics where I had to learn how to detonate the glaive, and it guided me through another system of the game where I could collect coins to open rifts and free prisoners from Corpus ships. This is something that I want to see more of in Warframe. I wish we saw this earlier in the game. Similar guided gameplay should be there for other systems that the game has to offer, but it doesn't really have that. I'm glad to see this later on in the game, but it needs to be more often, and it needs to be much earlier. The game has really hit its stride for me within the last 20 hours or so. The combat's more engaging, the systems are starting to make sense to me, my forge is pumping out new things to play with all the time, and my only gripe is that things like the Deadlock Protocol didn't happen earlier in the game. And to give another example, because I complained about how to find frames near the beginning of this video, I talked about it in my first video as well. Well, there's a quest that they give you later on to go and get the pieces for Limbo. They don't even really require you to actually get all of the pieces. It just kind of shows you how to get Limbo specifically. But things like that should be earlier in the game to guide players to be able to understand how to get frames, how to get weapons, and things like that. And having those on-rail quests are great because it's not hand-holding, it's just teaching players how the game actually works. And for new players, they need that. I needed that at the beginning. I only got through it because I pushed through it because I'm a glutton for punishment, and then also at the same time I'm a content creator, and you guys really liked the first video, so here I am making a second one. But yeah, I liked seeing that stuff later on. It helped me understand the game much more than I ever did before. However, I want to see some of that stuff sooner. With that said, the world design, the class design, the frame design, the weapon design, the character design, the quest design, all of these things are just getting better and better and better. And at this point, this is where I'm starting to fall in love with the game. And I just learned the name of that love, Natah. Now, I want to caution any viewers that are watching this that haven't got to this point in the story. If you haven't, I would come back at a later date once you've actually finished it. Continue watching at your own caution. Moving into Saturn and then Uranus, I ended up getting this quest that I was met with a really cryptic message from an unknown source. I brushed it off initially, thinking it was just some weirdo, that same guy that keeps sending me hate mail, the stalker. I still don't know who that is, by the way. But Lotus started acting odd. Later, I got a quest called Natah, where I went to go find these strange drones that Lotus wanted me to scan, and after scanning them, we ended up going to Earth and finding old war wreckage. Lotus freaks out for some reason, comes to some sort of conclusion, and then just cuts off communication with me. After that, I was contacted by Teshin. I don't know who that is either, but he's offering aid, and I'm all down for it, and he seems really suspicious of Lotus and her intentions. At this point, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, is she controlling me? Who is Lotus? Wait, for that matter, who am I, and what am I actually even doing in this world? The data we end up finding shows that Tyle Rager, I think that's how you say it, is a Grineer scientist, and he's trying to dig up these old war tombs. And Lotus mentions the Sentients. The Sentients start whispering this name to us, Natah. And at the very end of the mission, we finally get this major reveal. Lotus is Natah, once an Orokin or a sentient that was tasked to get rid of the Tenno, but she didn't because she wanted to become a mother. These sentients, by the way, aren't happy about that, and I'm sitting here left wondering whether I understand any of this or what the hell's going on. Lotus is my mother? What happened in the old war? What was the old war? Who are the Orokin? Why am I alive now, and what purpose do I serve? In my first impressions, I mentioned how the game kept leaving these breadcrumbs, these tasty little morsels that hinted at the game being more than what you think it was at first glance. And I feel as though this is not only a major tonal shift for the game's narrative, but also a shocking moment for myself coming to the realization that I have no idea how far this rabbit hole goes. The look and the feel of the game draw you in. But as you continue to push the star chart, you get all these hints at something greater. The intro to Venus, the Heart of Deimos, the Deadlock Protocol, the Strange New, Natah, and now the game feels like it's opening to infinite possibilities that are only drawing me closer and closer inside. Warframe is a slow burn, but damn, does that burn feel good the longer that you're in it. The best way for me to be able to describe what my experience with the game is thus far, at least at this point right now where I'm playing the game, is that I always feel like there's something huge right around the corner, some new big discovery that I'm going to make, maybe a new system to learn, maybe a new planet to explore, a new story beat to get into, and the game is just going to continue to expand and get bigger and have these massive moments and things like that, and it just feels so damn good. And I realized that when I came into this game, I was judging it the same way I would any other live service game. I was looking at each individual part, and I was critically analyzing each piece rather than zooming out a lot of bit, to be honest, with this game, and looking how everything works all together in harmony with one another. And it really does work. You look at the level design, you look at the world design, the character design, the story, the weapons, the frames, the companions, all these different things and how they all work together. And it just works. It works so damn well, and it feels good to play. And I really want more people to play it, but they got to fix that new player experience because that's a problem. With that said, I realized that now, after experiencing all of these things, some of my opinions and a lot of my assumptions about Warframe are just so wrong. Two things that commenters brought up in my first video were my positions on Platinum, the game's premium currency, and time gating. If you haven't watched any of my previous videos or any of my content, I am really critical about in-game monetization. It's something I talk about quite frequently, and it's not hard for a new player at first glance to come in and see this game as a cash grab. And for all intents and purposes, it still is, but that's a matter of perspective from how long you've been playing the game. Any new player like myself would walk into the game and see the outrageous prices for Platinum, how you can buy frames and weapons, or how you can speed up crafting, and immediately assume that the game is pay to win, pay to convenience, pay for everything, because you don't have the context that comes with playing the game long enough. So to save my ego, I'm going to say that I'm both right and wrong at the exact same time. Because now, from the perspective of a player that has 70 hours into the game, this is one of the most ethically monetized games to ever exist. It has more content, systems, and game modes than any other game that I've paid full price for. It's building up to a AAA quality story. The game includes a Nightwave, which is a season pass with no monetizable option that lets you carry over progress even if you miss the rewards the first time around. The game gives out useful items regularly. They have a live dev stream where they actually play the game with their audience while giving away more stuff for free. And they also have massive 75% currency discounts almost weekly. Just about everything that you can buy in the game for cash, you can build with little to no effort. The most powerful items in the games, prime frames and weapons, can't be bought with real money, but can be traded between players. After 70 hours of playing the game, you're going to learn that you're really only going to use premium currency, Platinum, to buy cosmetics and trade. I've cracked relics looking for items that I want and then sold those on the incredibly healthy and insanely convenient trading website warframemarket.com. But two things can be true. Warframe can be incredibly ethically monetized if you know the game. But it can also be incredibly predatory for those who are new, unaware, patient, or lack self-control, and that's why I have these sort of discussions in my video and why I'm so critical of monetization, because I feel it's necessary to try to at least protect those people when we can. Warframe is best described as a game that requires a series of disclaimers before suggesting it to anyone. You need to tell them that it's not pay to win and then show them how. You need to tell them that it's boring at first, but the game gets better. And all the while, you need to tell them that it's not what it seems without spoiling the journey. That's a really tough sell. With that said, yes, After 70 hours, Warframe is turning into one of my favorite games of all time. I'm hooked. I'm Tenno-pilled. I'm relic cracked. I'm in the circuit, and I'm loving every minute of it. And apparently, my next quest and my next video are going to be one hell of a trip. This video was a long one, much longer than I thought it would be, but I want to make sure that I'm sharing the journey the best that I can, and I'm doing it in a chronological order to make sure that people can follow along with it the best that they can. And I really want to thank you guys for watching the video up until this point, and even more so, I really want to thank the people that watched the last video, subscribed to the channel, and just how generally welcoming and warm the Warframe community has been to me as a content creator or as just a player. You guys have also been insanely generous as well. There was a few people that sent me some random gifts and just general thanks over on Warframe, and I really appreciate that. Most of the stuff at the beginning, I didn't even know what any of that stuff even did, but it really helped out, so thank you so much for that. And yeah, I can't wait to continue to share this journey. It's been an absolute blast. I'm really thankful for playing this game and it existing, because I'm normally somebody that usually doesn't really experiment with games very often. I usually just play like 1 or 2 games. Every once in a while, a new game pops up and I'll actually get it. But for the most part, I usually just stick to one. And this has gotten me to experiment a little bit, and it paid off a lot. And because of that, I'm going to play more games. And I'm thankful for that, because that's good not only for YouTube, but that's also good for me as a player, because I should play more things because I'm having an absolute blast doing it in the first place. Now, my next video is going to be on the second dream. And I have been told by many people that it's probably just going to be worth a video just by itself. So that'll probably be shorter, I would imagine, hopefully. But with that said, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are as well, because many of you guys left comments about it on the last video. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also planning on streaming it too, by the way. So if you want to see my live reaction to it, I'm going to stream it on probably Wednesday. So this video goes live Tuesday. The day after that, I'll be streaming it. I'll go live probably around 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and I'll stream it after my normal thing of chatting and all that good stuff. So if you guys enjoyed this video, come by the stream, like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, letting me know what you guys thought about the video, how much you love the game, and things like that. And yeah, that's all I got. Anyway, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, my friends, and I'll see you in Warframe. Peace.
Family, 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 family.